Part of North Korea defector Ms. Soon-ok Lee's testimony. Christians in North Korea, they are choked with grief. I was born in Cheongjin, North Hamgyong Province, North Korea, and lived there for almost 50 years. The North Korean government sees organized religious activity as a potential challenge to the dictatorship, so they strictly prohibit any outside religions such as Christianity. In 1996, I was able to escape from the north and to the south with my son by the grace of God, and since then, I have been learning and getting to know about Jesus. One day in North Korea, I was sent to jail without even knowing the reason. In prison, I was tortured every day and eventually sentenced to death, but still, not knowing the reason why I was there. When I was about to be executed, I was informed that the execution is canceled and I will be sent to the prison for political criminals. Because I studied economics in the University of Kim Il-sung, I was luckily selected as only manufacturing commander out of about 6,000 prisoners in the prison for political criminals. I was not only able to give orders to other prisoners, but also to be able to freely move around the workstations. The story I'm going to tell is what I saw in the prison with my own eyes. One day, a prison financial officer who was responsible of me called me in. He said, "From today, you will be going to this factory that is filled with crazy people and lunatics. Those lunatics do not have loyalty towards the leader and the party. Instead, they believe in someone in the sky or live in the sky, whatever. So you'd better pull yourself together before you go there. Also, do not make any kind of eye contact with them. If you do, you'll start to become like one of them. You will get killed." When I arrived, I could not believe what I was seeing. The workers did not look anything like humans. The factory had a furnace, which was burning at a temperature of at least 1,500 degrees Celsius. The place was boiling like a burning furnace itself, and the workers were working endlessly. When I saw the workers moving, it looked as if animals or aliens were moving. I could hardly find any evidence that they were human, like me. They were the men of skin and bones, but without any hair or teeth. Also, the workers looked like dwarves with a height between 12 and 47 inches. When I went closer to see them, I did not want to believe what I was seeing. They must have looked like me when they first came. However, after working 16 to 18 hours a day in a terrible environment, without any food, water, or rest, their bodies started to deform in shape. Their spine melted down and formed lumps on their backs. Also, they were bent over, as if their chest could touch their stomachs. Every single worker's body was completely deformed and destroyed. The guards came in and out of the factory frequently, and they always walked around lashing out at those workers. The guards were running the workers into the ground. I thought the workers were wearing black clothes, but when I looked closer, they weren't wearing any. Instead, they were wearing rubber aprons on bare skin. People who believe in Jesus were not given any clothes to put on. Sparks from the furnace flew up on their skin, scabs were formed, and another spark flew up. This happened over and over again, and their skin became darkened, like animal skin. One day, I witnessed a terrible scene at the factory. I walked into the factory one afternoon, and the place was silent as death. In the middle of the factory, there were hundreds of prisoners and 2 guards with bloodshot eyes. The guards were shouting at the prisoners that they were crazy lunatics who believed in crap. The guards were abusing them as if they were animals. I was too afraid to stand right at such a horrible scene, so I drew aside to see. One guard said, "If one of you could come up and say you will no longer believe the crap and swear loyalty to the leader, I will free the person." The other guards were forcing the prisoners to swear loyalty to the leader. Strangely, however, not a single prisoner stood up for freedom. Even if they were beaten to death, they remained silent. I thought, why do they remain in silence, risking their own lives? I wish someone could just swear his loyalty to the leader and save the rest. While I was shaking in fear, the prisoners who believed in God kept silent and did not answer back. One guard, full of anger, ran to the prisoners and randomly grabbed 8 prisoners. He then threw them down on the ground and smashed their faces and kicked their bodies. The prisoners' arms and legs were broken, and their faces got covered with blood. There were no words in the world that could possibly describe the pain that the prisoners felt. While they were writhing around on the floor in agony, they were moaning strangely in distress. I did not know Christ back then. However, I do clearly remember that they were crying out for the Christ's name even as they were dying. The guards burst with rage. He ran to the furnace and grabbed a bucket of molten metal. He said, "Let's see which of us lives. You, the prisoners who believe in Jesus, or us, who are loyal to the leader of the party." Then, he poured boiling molten metal over the bleeding prisoners on the ground, still crying out for Christ. Instantly, the prisoners' flesh melted and their bones turned into a lump of charcoal. I had never seen a human turning into charcoal right in front of my eyes. I was too devastated that I still do not remember how I got out of the scene. For the next few days, the terrible memory of the day haunted me. I could not close my eyes, could not sleep, could not work, and I was screaming in fear. Before I witnessed the scene, I believed in the leader and the party, but then I painfully realized with all my heart what I had to believe in. That is, humans need God, and we need to keep holding on to Him no matter what happens. Since then, I started to look for Jesus, whom my mom praised and prayed to all her life. I said to myself, if there really is a God, the God who the prisoners cried out to even when they were dying in pain, if you really do exist, please save me. Save me from this hell. And please punish those violent and vicious people. I cried out every day and night for Him. And one day, He heard me. He heard my prayer. Almost every month, public executions were carried out. Whenever public execution was carried out, the prisoners who believe in Christ were seated in the very front row. Kim Il-sung made a special order and guidelines specifically for the Christian prisoners. That is, they were not allowed to see the sky during their times in jail and even after their death. So, when a Christian prisoner is seated, his head must be tucked between his legs. After death, they fold the neck and cover it with cloth. Their body is then burned in a dark and secluded mountain valley so that it is impossible to look upon the sky. One day, the execution was being carried out, and 6,000 prisoners were seated to watch public execution, and, as always, the Christian prisoners were seated in the front row with their heads tucked down. When I was thinking, who are they going to kill again, I could hear someone yelling my name out loud. When I heard my name, I suddenly felt dizzy, as if someone had just hit my head with a pipe. I was too frightened that I could not stand up or answer back. After the guards dragged me out to the front, the commander of the prison said, "By the grace of our leader and the party, you are discharged from now on." At the same time, the Christian prisoners raised their heads as if they planned it and looked upon me. I saw their eyes for the first time, and I could feel what they were trying to say with such desperation. They were saying, "If you get out of here, please let the world know what is happening here every day." Since then, I could never forget their earnest and desperate eyes. I strongly believe that He, whom my mother has praised throughout her life, saved me from the infamous and hell-like prison. Christ saved my mother and me. I will never forget the desperate eyes of strong believers that I saw in the prison. I believe that those prisoners are martyrs of the present age. My testimonies about North Korean Christians have been spreading around 150 countries and shocking the world. Also, about 100 European intellectuals were gathered in France and published a statement about human rights of Christians in North Korea. Thank God for the freedom of faith that is granted to you every day, and please pray for North Koreans who are suffering even at this very moment.